Alright, it feels unfair to compare the modern lenses and the vintage lenses. But since I have all of them, I thought, why not? Let me do a test. Today I have a vintage lenses, the Canon 17mm f3.5. This lenses was made like in the 80s. And I have another one, it's called the Soligo. It's 45 to 150 micro. And also 3.5 f-stops. I have the modern lens, the Sigma 18 to 35 art, and I have the Sigma 70 to 200 sport. The Sigma 70 to 200 is f2.8. Because the vintage lenses are f3.5, so I decided to take this test in a very broad daylight. And I decided to shoot at 1 p.m. As you know, Spain is very hot. It was too much for me. But I made it happen. So I grouped these categories of test in few things: sharpness, focus, the focal length, how they perform when you do the zooming out and zooming in, and also the overall image qualities. So I'll try to go fast in all of these things. Again, it feels unrealistic to compare these two lenses, the vintage lenses and these new lenses. It's quite different technology, different time period, and a different camera as well, because nowadays we have these sharp sensors and they can produce a very different image compared to this period when they were using these vintage lenses. But in my honest opinion, I just tried to put everything as I could as like an artist, and try to see why other people like vintage lenses and why other people prefer these modern lenses. So I'll start with the image sharpness and the focus. I tried first with the Canon 17mm. As you know, it's a vintage lens and it's a prime lens, so it doesn't have autofocus compared to the Sigma 18 to 35mm. The Canon, on the other hand, I had to do the focus manually and try to do the technical old style of measuring the distance between the subjects and where the camera is. I messed up a lot. I think the best way to use these vintage lenses, unless if you have a lot of lights to put it on the subject, as well as if stylistically prefer to shoot that way, to have like a very poor polished image as your preference. On the other hand, I liked the way it looks. Again, it's a vintage lens, it has its own characteristics, it has its own vibe compared to this Sigma 18 to 35. I am not very scientific with this equipment, especially lenses. I just could see the image with my own naked eyes, and I pick what I love. On the same testing of sharpness and focus, I tested again the Sigma 70 to 200 with the Soligo 45 to 150 to see which one is behaving well with the focus. Again, the Sigma has autofocus, the Soligo doesn't have autofocus. So I treated them fairly. I switched off the autofocus on the Sigma and try to do it manually. It's really nice, but again, in the broad daylight, I was in 3.8, if not 2.8, trying to balance the image, because again, the lens is very sharp, so I have a very crisp or clear image compared to the Soligo. So I was trying to meet them in the overall how I expose the images. On the other hand, the Soligo, it looks like even at 3.5, the images still look very blurry. It's the sharpness is not there yet. You have to be very careful if you use them in a very important project, unless if you are creative projects and it's yours. But in my opinion, I'm not going to put it in my very sensitive project, because you cannot tell if the subject is a bit distant. You cannot tell whether you are in focus or you are not. Even in the time that I did again the measurement of the distance, try to see exactly if I'm hitting the marks, trying to measure from the sensor to the subject and exactly the distance. Still, it was not on point. Even when you zoom in with the magnification from the camera, you still doesn't get exactly the sharpness that you'll get from the modern lenses. Again, I think I preferred more the look on the Soligo 45 to 150, the way it looks. The bokeh, it was really nice and very nice shape, like very cyclo. I like that type of bokeh, and it was very stylistic and compared to the Sigma 70-200, because it is a bit, the bokeh is a bit like faded in, like in a weird shape. I don't know how to put it. Again, on the subject of aperture, the Tokina 17mm f3.5 in a broad daylight with a very strong sun, I open all of it and even clear out the ND filters. I could see how you can suffer if you shoot in low lights, because even I cleared all the NDs on the camera, I could still have some details in the image with wide open. So you can imagine how crazy the lens is if you try to use it in the low light. I satisfied myself on the basis that this lens, for sure, it's the vintage lens, and I can never try to use it to shoot at night unless otherwise I have a lot of source of light, in which cases that probably you shoot in the street where you have a lot of sources, or you have a big HMIs. And overall, as I said earlier, that the look on the 17, I don't know, maybe because it's too wide, I didn't really like the bokeh, and the focus, it's really like when you change focus, it has a lot of lens breathing. It's as if the whole image is moving. But in most cases, in the Sigma 18-35 1.8 is more likely you are not going to use during the day 1.8, unless otherwise in your special cases. Most of the time I shoot at 2.8, even at 3. So I don't know why, but at 2.8 I still get a very pretty, beautiful image. Of course, it's a modern lens with a modern sensor. I understand. I don't know why, but I like the image on the Sigma. Even though the Sigma has its own characteristics, which somehow the image look flat, and especially if you don't use the polarizers filters, because if you depend so pretty much on the ND filters that you have in the camera, for example, you look at the light at 2 stops, but you'll have a perfect image, but still it's a bit washed out. You need some sort of the polarizer. I have tested a few times the Sigma 18-35. I've realized it has this bit of characteristics. So keep it in mind if you own this lens. The other thing I want to talk is the smooth zoom in and zoom out. I've realized the Soligo, it has a lot of shaking. When you are trying to zoom in the subject, you're not sure if it's really working or it's not, and it's a bit hard compared to the Sigma 70-200. Of course, it's a modern lens, but it's very smooth, very fast, and as long as you have the image on focus, you can punch in, you still have the same focal point with the same focus. It doesn't have focus shift, so whether you punch in, you still have the same focus, you punch out, you still have the same focus. Compared to the Soligo, it's a bit struggling. When you zoom in, it looks like the focus shifts. So what's my opinion on vintage lenses and modern lenses? I saw a documentary long ago of the famous cinematographer from Hollywood. He said a lot of people complain how sharp red sensor is, but they should know that if you don't want to have a very sharp image, just don't use sharp lenses, because it's not the camera, it's the lens. Personally, I prefer the modern lenses because of its versatility and its flexibility. Just to stick the lens on the camera, turn on autofocus, and here we go. I'm here, no hassle. I just have one light, well, 2 lights, the background and this key light, that's it. Even I'm shooting at 2.8, easy peasy, easy peasy, easy peasy, easy peasy. I like Michael Bay's movies. They look very sharp and crispy, and I like them. Maybe because I started filmmaking in the age between the films and digital. My first movie I shot with those mini div. Of course, it's not film, but I know the hassle capturing them, It's crazy. Please let me know in the comment below, which lenses do you prefer, vintage or these modern lenses? I heard there are pretty good vintage lenses out there in the market. The one that I know is the one that I have in my hand. I never tested other old lenses. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate this channel is still very young and very small. I need this filmmaking family. Let's build it and share the videos to friends and loved ones that you want them to see, and adios.